White woman takes black CEO's seat. He grounds the airline. 5 minutes later, the boarding area for Flight 237 buzzed with muted conversations and the clatter of rolling carry-ons. First-class passengers filtered through the jet bridge as gate agents scanned phones with practiced efficiency. Marcus Ellison stepped into view, tailored navy suit, leather portfolio in hand, the kind of quiet presence that turns heads without trying. He had built his reputation from the ground up, yet moved like someone who did not need to prove it. Inside the cabin, polished metal and soft lighting framed the rows of wide leather seats. In 2A, a woman in a cream designer coat lounged as if the space had been created for her alone. Victoria Hawthorne cradled a flute of champagne while speaking into her phone, her luxury handbag occupying the footwell. Without looking up, she waved the flight attendant closer and gestured at Marcus's boarding pass. The attendant leaned toward Marcus with a polite but clipped tone. "Sir, perhaps you should double-check your seat assignment." Marcus glanced at his pass, 2A, printed in bold. He remembered the countless times he had accepted mistakes, moved quietly, let situations slide. His grip on the portfolio tightened. Across the cabin, a few passengers paused mid-conversation, sensing tension. Phones tilted discreetly. The scene felt like a small courtroom forming in the sky before takeoff. Would Marcus take his usual quiet path, or was this the moment everything changed? Marcus stayed standing in the narrow aisle, boarding pass steady in his hand, while the hum of the cabin blurred into the background. A flicker of memory cut through the present, not random, but a chain of moments that had led to this one. Conference rooms appeared in his mind like a montage. A sleek table, a screen glowing with charts he had built himself, and another executive presenting his work as if it were theirs. The applause went to someone else. Marcus had smiled then, swallowed the sting, and told himself there would be another chance. He had been saying that for years. Another image surfaced, the polished floor of an exclusive airport lounge. A uniformed employee approached him with a towel and asked where the restrooms were, mistaking him for staff. He had been wearing a tailored blazer that day, laptop open, preparing to pitch to investors. He had laughed it off, but the laugh felt hollow even as it left his throat. The present snapped back. Leather seats, champagne glasses, and the cold edge of entitlement glinting from 2A. Victoria Hawthorne adjusted her scarf without acknowledging him. The flight attendant still hovered, expecting him to yield. Marcus did not move. He thought about the long road from a cramped apartment on the south side of Chicago to this first-class cabin. Nights spent coding at a kitchen table, building a startup that would one day fund other minority entrepreneurs. Every milestone had been a rung on a ladder no one wanted him to climb. Seat 2A was not just a number printed on a ticket. It was the visible proof of a lifetime of work, of earning the right to occupy space that others assumed belonged to someone else. His jaw relaxed, but his voice stayed measured. Years of being underestimated had taught him that composure was not weakness. It was strategy. Yet under that composure lived a man who had decided he would not surrender another inch of dignity for convenience. Across the aisle, a couple whispered, eyes flicking between Marcus and Victoria. Phones angled discreetly, capturing the moment without sound. The cabin's hum rose and fell like a tide, tension pooling around the confrontation. Marcus felt it but refused to shrink. He shifted his portfolio under one arm, making clear he was not a guest in first class, but a rightful occupant. In his silence, the stakes crystallized. This was not about a seat. It was about every boardroom slight, every mistaken identity, every compromise that had chipped away at his sense of belonging. If he yielded now, the lesson would echo louder than any speech he could give. That was why his feet stayed planted in the aisle, steady as a pillar in the turbulence of other people's assumptions. The boarding pass still lay open in Marcus Ellison's hand, like a small, silent contract. The cabin's muted chatter dipped as more eyes drifted toward the standoff in row 2. He shifted his weight once, not in retreat, but in anchoring himself. This was the moment that separated habit from choice. "I believe you are in my seat," he said, voice even yet carrying across the cabin. The words were not loud, but they held the kind of weight that makes people pause. His tone drew a faint arch of Victoria Hawthorne's eyebrow. She lowered her phone slowly, a smile playing at the edge of her lips. You people always think everything is yours, she replied with an airy sweetness. Her handbag stayed planted at her feet like a flag of ownership. The flight attendant glanced nervously from one boarding pass to the other. Sir, she said, perhaps you could take 5C just until after takeoff. It will only be a short inconvenience. A subtle tremor of old memories ran through Marcus, times when temporary had meant invisible, when short had stretched for years. He looked at the printed numbers on his ticket and felt the entire ladder he had climbed pressing against his back. This was where compromise had to end. I will sit in the seat I purchased, he answered. This is 2A. The attendant hesitated, then pressed the call button on the bulkhead. A soft chime pulsed through the cabin. Passengers tilted their phones, red lights blinking. The escalation had begun. Victoria adjusted her scarf with deliberate slowness. Such aggression over a chair, she murmured for nearby ears. The coded phrasing floated like perfume, harmless on the surface, corrosive underneath. Marcus inhaled, shoulders square, portfolio steady under his arm. He would not raise his voice. He would not move backward. The captain was on his way. The minor inconvenience had become an official confrontation. Phones kept recording, the hum of engines still low. Every second stretched, an invisible line tightening between authority and entitlement. Marcus did not blink. The open question now belonged to everyone watching. Would he be forced out, or would he finally be seen? The cabin door clicked shut, and the sound of footsteps echoed up the aisle. Captain Reynolds appeared from the cockpit, hat tucked under one arm, expression set between patience and urgency. The schedule on his wristwatch mattered, but so did the sight of first-class passengers whispering and filming with raised phones. He stopped at row 2, eyes moving from Marcus to Victoria. Good afternoon. I am Captain Reynolds. I am told there is a seating issue. His voice carried the steady tone of someone used to solving problems before they became headlines. Victoria spoke first, leaning back as if to distance herself from the trouble she had created. This gentleman is blocking the aisle and making a scene, she said, one hand resting on her bag. We all just want to get airborne. Marcus kept his posture upright, boarding pass held where the captain could see it. I am standing because this is my seat 2A, he said. I have asked politely. I have followed every rule. Phones tilted higher. The low buzz of whispers spread across the cabin like static. A child peered over a seatback, eyes wide. The moment felt larger than two people in one chair. Captain Reynolds glanced at the attendant, then back at Marcus. Sir, if you could take another seat temporarily, we can sort this out after takeoff, he offered, tone smoothing into negotiation. It will help everyone. Marcus's grip tightened on the portfolio under his arm. I purchased 2A. I will sit in 2A, he replied. This plane is not leaving until my seat is honored. His words were firm but calm, the calm of a man who had reached the end of compromise. Victoria exhaled loudly, performing exasperation for the nearest phones. This is unbelievable, she muttered. Aggressive over nothing. The captain shifted his weight. A flight attendant whispered in his ear, eyes darting toward the filming passengers. Public relations flickered in his mind. A full cabin delayed, video already spreading, a story forming before takeoff. Marcus did not move. I am not causing a scene, he said evenly. I am asking for what I paid for and what is written on this ticket. Airline policy is clear. He held the pass higher, ink bold under the cabin lights. The hush inside the plane grew heavy. Every second of delay increased the tension, every whisper feeding curiosity. The situation had moved beyond inconvenience. It had become a question of respect, policy, and reputation. Would the airline remove him, or would the truth finally be seen? Captain Reynolds straightened, feeling the weight of eyes and cameras. His next choice would decide more than a departure time. A new set of footsteps broke the tense silence. Shoes with quiet authority tapped against the cabin floor. A woman in a navy blazer stepped through the curtain, a clipboard under one arm, a handheld scanner in her other hand. Her badge caught the light. Samantha Cole, Airline Operations Manager. The atmosphere shifted. This was not routine crew, but someone who could decide policy on the spot. She stopped beside the captain, eyes moving calmly between Marcus and Victoria. Good afternoon, she said, voice even but carrying weight. I understand there is a question about seating. Marcus lowered his boarding pass toward her. 2A, he said simply. His tone carried no anger, only clarity. Victoria straightened in her seat, fingers tightening around her phone. "This man is disrupting the flight," she said quickly. "I was told to sit here." Samantha lifted the scanner. One smooth beep confirmed Marcus's ticket. She flipped a page on the clipboard, cross-checking with practiced speed. Then she held out her hand toward Victoria. "May I see your boarding pass, please?" The cabin hushed. The only sounds were the soft chime of an overhead bin and the faint recording clicks from nearby phones. Victoria hesitated, then handed over her pass with a faint sigh. Samantha scanned it. Another beep, a different color flashing on the device. She glanced at her list, then back at Victoria. "This seat 2A is assigned to Mr. Marcus Ellison," Samantha said clearly enough for the whole cabin to hear. "Your boarding pass is for 5C. Her words dropped like a gavel striking wood. A beat of silence held everyone. Victoria's cheeks flushed a deep red. She reached for her handbag, movements small now. No one spoke. Passengers stared, the tension reversing direction like a tide. Samantha kept her tone polite but firm. "Ms. Hawthorne, please move to your assigned seat so we may depart," she said. "We appreciate your cooperation." Victoria stood slowly, eyes down, the aura of certainty gone. She stepped past Marcus without a word, slipping into the aisle with her bag pressed close to her side. A murmur ran through the cabin. Someone clapped once, tentative, then another. The sound spread, palms meeting palms in a quiet, rolling approval. Phones tilted higher, capturing the rare moment of public accountability. Marcus did not smile. He simply exhaled, a controlled release of the air he had been holding. He stepped into 2A, placed his portfolio neatly under the seat, and fastened his belt. "Thank you," he said softly to Samantha, meeting her eyes. It was gratitude without theatrics, dignity without triumph. Samantha nodded once, then turned to the captain. "The matter is resolved. We may depart." Her voice carried finality. Around them, the clapping faded into a satisfied quiet. The cabin felt lighter, as if a collective weight had shifted. Marcus faced forward, hands resting calmly on his knees. A man who had stood his ground and now occupied the space he had earned. Engines rumbled, and the aircraft began its slow push from the gate. The cabin tilted slightly as the wheels rolled toward the runway. Marcus sat back in 2A, shoulders easing against the leather headrest. The sound of safety announcements blurred into the background. Outside the window, taxi lights flickered across the tarmac, like small constellations guiding the plane forward. A breath left his lungs without effort. It was not relief exactly, but a release of something heavier that had sat inside him for years. His fingers rested on the armrest, steady now. He had held his ground without raising his voice. He had stayed exactly where he had earned the right to sit. The captain's voice came over the intercom, thanking passengers for their patience and promising a smooth flight to Dallas. Marcus glanced across the aisle. A middle-aged man leaned forward, voice low but sincere. "Thank you for standing up," he whispered. "It matters." The words were soft, but carried a weight that settled warmly in Marcus's chest. Behind him, Victoria shifted in her seat without speaking. Her designer coat was neatly folded now, her posture smaller than before. She looked at her phone, then out the opposite window, avoiding the eyes of anyone who might be watching. No apology came, only silence and the sound of pages turning in a magazine she had opened. Clouds moved beneath the wings as the plane lifted off. Marcus's reflection caught in the window showed calm eyes, not triumphant but certain. He thought of the boardrooms, the lounge incident, the countless small slights that had built up over time. This moment felt different. It was not about a seat on a plane. It was about proving to himself that his dignity was non-negotiable. He inhaled slowly, filling his lungs with the pressurized cabin air, and exhaled with a quiet sense of restoration. The fight had not been loud, but it had been clear. Outside, the horizon brightened, the first hint of daylight breaking through the clouds as the aircraft climbed higher, carrying Marcus forward with a steadier sense of who he was. Wheels touched down with a soft jolt, and the engine slowed. Passengers reached for their phones and overhead bags, but Marcus stayed seated a moment longer. His laptop opened on the tray table, screen glowing against the dim cabin light. He typed steadily, words measured and clear, not angry but direct. The email went to the airline's board of directors and senior leadership. He outlined the incident, then proposed steps: mandatory bias training for all frontline staff, stronger accountability systems for seating disputes, and a review process where dignity was part of customer care. His tone was not a complaint, but a blueprint. Across the city, the montage played out in the viewer's mind. In one office, a senior executive clicked open the email. In another, a manager paused mid-meeting to read Marcus's message. Faces shifted from curiosity to thoughtfulness as his suggestions scrolled across their screens. The story that had begun as a seat dispute now landed on desks where policy could change. Narration rose over the images like a quiet verdict. Sometimes a fight is not about a seat. It is about respect. It is about equity. It is about refusing to shrink in the face of routine unfairness. Marcus had acted not only for himself, but for every passenger who had been told to let it go. The camera of imagination returned to Marcus in the terminal. He closed his laptop and stood tall, moving through the crowd with calm steps. A line settled inside him, a promise to mentor younger entrepreneurs and travelers to stand firm when dignity was questioned. The scene faded on his steady walk, leaving a quiet but powerful sense of resolve for viewers to carry with them.